Why don't men have a choice regarding unexpected pregnancies? Because there is no perfect answer. This is just the least bad one. You're right that it's unfair for guys. But any alternative would be way more unfair on women, children when applied at scale. If we could redesign pregnancy from scratch, or afford to give everyone free child parenting support, then sure, things would be different. But as it stands, this is just what causes the least harm to the least people. Generally speaking, because governments in the US have chosen to make the biological fathers responsible for paying for their biological children's upkeep. Technically, this is not a requirement. A government interested in making motherhood an attractive choice would simply fund the child support and childcare required for a pregnant single woman's continued relatively normal existence after childbirth, and pass laws making motherhood not a detriment to most careers. Then there would be only medical considerations for ending a pregnancy. Of course, all pregnancies are dangerous to the pregnant women, and continuing to childbirth remains a more dangerous choice than abortion in a country with safe, legal abortion methods. The choice you reference doesn't exist if motherhood is simply adequately funded in the US by US governments. Because the biological fathers don't even need to know they have fathered children. US governments aren't interested in making motherhood an attractive choice. Instead, there's no adequate help from the government for pregnant single women, both before and after pregnancy. The biological fathers are going to pressure the women to have abortions. And women who have to go through with childbirth will frequently face inadequate supports and absent fathers running away to avoid paying child support. Their employers, many of whom profess anti-abortion views and support these views with money, will punish the single mothers at their jobs simply for having had children, and sharply curtail their advancement in their careers. Abortion is both the safest choice and the best economic choice, even if illegal, for pregnant single women in the US. Because US governments have chosen to require payment from biological fathers for their biological children, rather than just adequately fund motherhood. We need our own pill. It would be nice to be able to choose to be fertile or not. He assumes none of the physical risk of a pregnancy, which makes the decision a much less pressing one for him than it is for her. Pregnancy can and sometimes does straight up kill her. If you do not want to assume the non-physical risks of having a child, which are real, then have that conversation with your partner ahead of time. That's fair. But bear in mind that she takes all the same risks you do. And then some more. They have lots of choices regarding an unexpected pregnancy, just not over whether it is aborted. Them having legal influence on that choice would violate their partner's fundamental right to bodily autonomy. Pregnancy is not fair and will never be fair. Women risk their lives, may be permanently injured, incontinent, may never have the body they used to, and may have to mourn that loss. Not to mention the actual almost a year of sacrifice that has to be made. You are uncomfortable, possibly throwing up, maybe in physical pain. You may have to leave your job for a month or be put on bed rest. Your whole loaf may be put on hold, and career-wise some women never recover. Men are not risking their lives or well-beings to bring life into the world. That's not fair, but it is what it is. And men don't get to have that choice. It's not fair, but what's the best alternative really? Forcing women to go through with unwanted and potentially dangerous pregnancies, forcing them into unwanted abortions, or forcing the children who are born of this to grow up on a single income in a society that makes it nearly impossible to survive as even one person on a single income for most people? Where's the fairness in any of it? Sometimes when we can't have fair, we have to shoot for harm reduction.
These comments make my head hurt.
There is no contraception that is 100% safe. So whenever you have sex, you basically auto-consent to the risk that it could cause a pregnancy. At least that's how courts in Germany have ruled. And I think it makes sense. A child should bear the consequences of your lust. Body integrity. If the pregnancy was taking place inside the man's body instead of the woman's body, then the man would have control over it. I believe 4 of them made a choice for all of us last summer. Men rarely die during childbirth, so it sort of evens out. Probably because of social expectations. When there is an unexpected pregnancy, 9 times out of 10 the woman has to deal with the fallout from whichever choice they have. A man can't force an abortion, just like they can't force them to keep it. I've no doubt there are those out there that do, but that's domestic violence, and yes, there is sympathy, but it's usually followed up with the question, well, why did she have sex with them in the first place, in the court of public opinion? With so many things up in the air in terms of body autonomy attacks, it's easier and simpler for women to remove men from the equation completely, but again, the court of public opinion will always generalize that a woman is a baby trap when they choose to keep a child their sexual partner doesn't. Laws that allow men to request non-contact payment would go to helping this, but like all systems would be abused. This is why individual approaches to all situations should happen. Saying just don't have sex also doesn't cover those who have been sexually assaulted, and man's choice on forcing childbirth, then forcing no responsibility would happen, and in a world that's seriously messed up, that risk cannot be taken. Women often talk about not being able to take that risk with being enforced to never be in that situation in the first place, so when it does happen, a lot of the time the feeling is often, I have to deal with this myself as it is my own fault. Again, taking a generalist's approach backed up by social expectations, because your body, your fault. Again, though, this brings us back to the very real situation, and that is body autonomy of women is under attack, leading to many choosing not to have sex and getting sterilizing surgery even in relationships in case they are attacked. I feel your question comes from a place of interest of someone who's in a happy communication open relationship instead of demanding a justice-based answer, but in a world where as a woman you automatically become more often than not at the mercy of the law. My body, my choice often becomes my choice equals my survival, which is why generalizing questions like this go haywire. Edited for spacing. I think ultimately it comes down to a biological reality. While we can hope that dialogue happens between both partners, the decision can ultimately only ever be the women's. Otherwise we would be performing a fairly traumatic procedure on someone who didn't consent it, which is a pretty scary bag of worms to open. It's not really fair. And it's a not fun answer to an even harder question. This is one of the big reasons people advocate so heavily for birth control and proper sex education, though, because of how high stakes and scary pregnancy can be for both parties. Because both parents have a financial obligation to the child. It's not the same as a woman having the right to choose, because in that case, there is no child to be obligated to. Just some cells that have the potential to become a child. Nobody has an obligation to a clump of cells. Once the child is born, it is now an independent person with a right to be financially supported by both parents. This also applies if the father has primary custody, in which case the mother should be paying support. Men don't get a say in the abortion cause it's not their body. There is a concept known as a paper abortion or financial abortion that talks about giving men the right before birth to opt out of any rights to the child, including financial support. A Swedish political group proposed a bill like this in 2016. The main difference though is that there is a child involved, and the well-being of a child is put above the financial needs of the parents. Women take all the biological risk. Women experience career disruption. Women carry the greater financial burden, even just during pregnancy. Legally, you cannot be forced to give up your body parts to keep another person alive. It's called bodily autonomy. Because people don't want to pay taxes for social programs that don't obviously and immediately benefit them as individuals.
Sexism.
I've never made anyone pregnant, intentional or otherwise. But if I did, I wouldn't expect my feelings to matter as much or more than hers. However, I do find it reasonable that if she wants the baby and I don't, I shouldn't have to be 100% involved with the kid. They do. Get a vasectomy or wear a condom.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.